shot him 6 times. I shot him in the heart. This man, he's not human.
Universal Pictures presents Halloween 2, More of the Night He Came Home.
Who is it?
There was nothing within him, neither conscience nor reason, that wasn't even remotely human.
This is some kind of a joke. I've been trigger-treated to death tonight.
You don't know what death is.
Janet, go tell Mr. Garrett we're having trouble with the phones.
There is no place to hide. He will always find you.
What's this? It's a Celtic word. It means the Lord of the Dead.
Mr. Garrett?
Halloween 2, More of the Night He Came Home.
Hello everyone, I am Sean and welcome once again to my Horror Corner. As always, thank you so much for watching the video today. I really do appreciate it. And to those of you that who are subscribers, thank you as well. I've seen a couple more subscribe in the last few days, so thank you all so much. Again, I've said before, while I don't do this for the numbers, it is very encouraging to see the people subscribing and liking the videos, leaving comments, interacting with me. So thank you so much for that. I really do appreciate that. It's very encouraging. And yeah, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. And feel free to share the video, share the channel. And yeah, maybe I can get this to continue to grow and build up and become something more. So again, thank you so very much. I really do appreciate it. Today, we are continuing along with the Halloween franchise that we just recently started. And we are going to be talking about Halloween 2. A very, don't want to get ahead of myself, but a very underrated sequel, in my opinion. We'll just start with that. But before we get into Halloween, a couple of more collectibles I want to show you. I showed you a couple of things that I had of Michael last episode. And so I'm going to do the same thing today and show you a couple of things I have in my Michael collection. So this first one I'm going to show you, one of the, it's the ultimate Michael Myers figure for Halloween 2. Since we're talking about Halloween 2 today, I thought I'd show a couple things, particularly from that movie. So this figure, of course, I'm sure a lot of other people have it, but I think it's really cool. I like these ultimate figures that NECA has released. I really, really like this one. I think it's very cool. And then one of my favorite things in my collection that was given to me, last year at some point as a gift. And this is Laurie Strode and Dr. Loomis from Halloween 2. I think this one's awesome. Yeah, I was with someone. We happened to be in a store and we're looking at some things and saw this, and I freaked out because I thought it was really cool, and so they bought it for me as a gift. So yeah, I really like this. I think it's super cool. The combo there of Michael and of Dr. Loomis and Laurie. So yeah. That's what I wanted to show you to start this off. But yeah, so we'll get ready now to get into the movie a little bit. I will say that the first time I saw this film, I don't even remember. I've seen this movie just like that original multiple times. But I know the first time I did see the film, I was a huge fan. I really liked it. Seen it several times throughout the years and just recently watched it again in preparing for this. And yeah, like I said, I don't want to to just jump right ahead to what I think, but I do still like the film. We'll start with that. All right. So let's talk about Halloween 2. Let me put my glasses on so I can read my notes. Quick synopsis for the film. After failing to kill stubborn survivor Laurie Strode and taking a bullet or 6 from former psychiatrist Dr. Samuel Loomis, Michael Myers has followed Laurie to the Haddonfield Memorial Hospital, where she has now been admitted. Myers cuts, stabs, and slashes his way through hospital staff to reach his favorite victim. Brief synopsis of the film. I'm sure most people, especially if you're watching this, have already seen this film, but just in case you haven't, yeah, like I said, brief synopsis for the film there. The movie was released on October 30th of 1981, directed by Rick Rosenthal in his directorial debut, written by John Carpenter and Deborah Hill, produced by Deborah Hill and John Carpenter, cinematography done by Dean Cundy, who returned from the first one, edited by Mark Goldblatt and Skip Skulnick, music by John Carpenter and Alan Howarth. Production company Dino De Laurentiis Corporation, distributed by Universal Pictures, a runtime of 92 minutes, a budget of $2.5 million, and the box office of $25.5. So, while not as successful as the first, still did well as far as box office numbers. Rotten Tomatoes scores, though, definitely down from that first film. Critics scores are only 33%. Audience scores, still not bad, 63%, but like I said, down from the first film. And just the overall, again, I don't put a lot of stock into critics' opinions. It is kind of cool when you find one that you love and the critics love it too, but like the first film. But critics primarily, the overwhelming thing that I just kept reading with this one is that Halloween 2 lacked the suspense of the first film and just went into, the typical slasher bloody nonsense. Again, while I don't put a lot of stock into what critics say, I don't really agree at all with that take on this, and I'll get into why I feel that way here a little bit more later on. Quickly, though, let's go through the cast. We have Dick Warlock as Michael Myers, Jamie Lee Curtis returning as Laurie Strode, Donald Pleasance returning as Dr. Samuel Loomis, Charles Cyphers returns briefly as Sheriff Brackett, Lance Guest as Jimmy, Pamela Sharp as Nurse Karen Bailey, Hunter Ben Lear as Deputy Gary Hunt, Tawny Moyer as Nurse Jill Franco, Anna Alicia as Nurse Janet Marshall, and of course Nancy Stevens also returning as Marion Chambers. Before I get into the film itself, just a couple of things that I'll point out about this film. So John Carpenter, as I mentioned, he and Deborah Hill had written the film, but Carpenter refused to direct. This was not something that he really wanted. He did not want a sequel. He thought the story was done after the first film, and really didn't want to continue on with things, despite the amount of money that first film made. He thought it was good enough as is, and didn't want to mess with it. And like I said on the last episode, if there would have never been another Halloween movie, that would have been okay. It was sufficient as it was. I do like the fact that we've gotten more, because I'm a huge fan of the franchise in general and a huge fan of Michael Myers. But Carpenter, like I said, just didn't want to. But was initially persuaded to do so, and so he and Hill wrote the film. Excuse me. The original plan, though, was what they were originally trying to come up with was set to be a few years later, after that original, everything that happened on that night. This was going to be a few years later, and Myers was going to track Laurie down at a high-rise apartment building that she was now living in. But in conversations and going over scripts and things like that, that changed to just more pick up exactly with, the events of that night, and then go into the hospital and that type of thing. I don't know what that would have been like, but one of the things that I like about this film is that it does pick up that same night. So I'm glad they went in this direction. The sequel, however, was intended to conclude the story of Michael Myers and Laurie Strode. Carpenter, he even said in a 1982 interview that Michael Myers and, unfortunately, Dr. Samuel Loomis are dead. That was Carpenter's thoughts after they did this movie. After it was released, people were seeing it, and he was asked about the ending of the film, and he said, "Yeah, that's it. Myers and Loomis gone." Of course, we find out later that's not the case, but yeah, he intended this to end that story and then go in a completely different direction for the next Halloween movie, which they did, and we'll get into next episode. But the sister storyline Carpenter created, and of Laurie being Michael's sister, because again, he felt that that first film was it. That was really all he had, and so he didn't feel like he had anything left to contribute and to make another film out of. And so that's where he got the idea then of. Was reading different things that he was doing, and he was talking about he basically started coming up with a concept, just sitting around drinking and typing on his typewriter and not having a clue what to do for this film. That's where he came up with the idea of doing the brother sister story. He also felt like that by this time, the original film came out in 1978. This one, like I said, was done in 1981. Even though it had only been 2 or 3 years, Carpenter really felt like horror was changing, especially the slasher subgenre. He felt like that, the original Halloween didn't really have much gore in it, and we've talked about, movies like Texas Chainsaw Massacre didn't have a lot of gore in it. He felt like that time was gone. And now these slasher films, you had to have that aspect to the film. So he wanted to add more gore, add some nudity, and just make it more graphic in general because horror was changing. That's really kind of all I've got on anything as for, behind the scenes. I didn't take any notes of it, so I don't remember the name of the actual hospital, but the film was done in a couple of months, was shot over the course of a couple of months there in California, and the hospital that was used was near an airport. And so I did read that they had a lot of issues with filming and had to stop and restart and do things a lot because of airplane noise. And I can definitely see that being an issue. What it reminded me of, and this is totally a rabbit hole, and I'll try not to go down it very much, but growing up as a kid, my parents liked to watch tennis, and I actually don't mind tennis. I really don't watch it much anymore because I'm getting old and I don't know who any of these new guys are that play anymore. But, I knew a lot back in the day when I was a kid because my parents watched tennis quite a bit. And I always remember when they watched the U.S. Open a lot, which took place there in New York, but it was very near an airport. And I remember all of the time watching these tennis matches and the players having to stop and wait a minute because of airplanes flying by overhead and making it hard to concentrate. That's what this reminded me of. Why I went there, I have no idea. That's just what crossed my mind. Let's get into this movie, though, a little bit and talk about some of the things that I liked about it, or if there was something I didn't like, we'll discuss that kind of thing. Again, I mentioned I really like the fact that this film picks up right after the events of the original. That same night, Myers has disappeared. Loomis is freaking out, telling the law enforcement that he shot Michael 6 times and he somehow got up and walked away. I like that we jump right in and pick up right there where we left off. I always like that when movies do that, when they sequels or other movies in a franchise pick up immediately following the events of the first. That adds to it. I appreciate that. And so, yeah, I like the fact that we did that here. Again, I feel like we do get a good opening with that. As Myers escapes and gets away, we get a shot of him stealing a knife from an older couple. We then get to see him kill a teenage girl. Laurie's en route to the hospital. It's a good opening, I feel like. Doesn't have the same, that classic feel of the original. I get that, but the story's already set up, so we're not setting anything up new. We're just jumping right in and picking back up. So, and there, from there, the film really kind of, we go back and forth from 2 different parts of the story. It seems to be what's happening now for the majority of the film. We have Michael, who has heard on a newscast that Laurie has been taken to the hospital, and he's headed to the hospital to kill her. And once he's in the hospital, I feel like we get a lot of good kills again here. There's a scene where he kills a security guard with a hammer to the head that I think looks great. Yes, more gore in this film. The kills are a little more graphic, but I appreciate that. And I've always said that when a lot of times when a sequel gets made, especially if you don't have to have it, because again, I agree with those who felt like at this time. And again, we've got so many Myers movies since then that's maybe stupid to even bring up now. But since we've gotten so many more, uh, no, we didn't need a sequel to the original Halloween. I completely agree. We didn't need it, but I'm glad we got it. And I'm glad we've got this entire franchise since then. But where I was going with that is that if you're going to do a sequel um, to a film, then I feel like you've got to step it up and take it to the next level. Whether that means better kills, whether that means just be a little more gory, something. You've got to take what you had and take it to the next level a little bit without if the first film was really good, like this one was, without losing some of that as well. I feel like this film tries really hard to accomplish those two things. And I feel like it does accomplish stepping it up where the kills and the gore are concerned, which again, as a slasher fan, I absolutely appreciate that. I love that. I'm perfectly fine with that. And we get some good ones. Like I said, we get the security guard getting killed with the hammer to the head. We get some other good kills throughout. While this is going on, while Michael has gotten to the hospital, another kill, I'm a little bit ahead of myself here, but when I think Halloween 2, one of the first things I think of is the scene where you've got the EMT and the nurse that have stepped away for a little bit and they've gone down to um, basically it's a tub, down there, but they're using it as a hot tub and, having a makeout session and Michael ends up, um, the nurse is talking about it's too cold in there and wanting, or I'm sorry, takes that back, that it's too hot in the tub and that the guy needs to go, adjust. And so he gets up to go try to adjust the temperature a little bit. Michael kills him and then he comes out and gets her and, shoves her face in this boiling water, drowning her and also burning her skin off at the same time. Which, little side note there, I do remember reading again about this film where she mentioned that while they were trying to give the illusion of how hot the water was, that it was actually very cold in there. And the water was very cold, very dirty. And the scenes where Michael is shoving her face down into the water, she actually ended up getting an ear infection from how cold and dirty the water was. Well, I can't talk for a minute. How cold and dirty the water was. She ended up getting an ear infection from that. So, yeah, little side note. But yeah, that kill always comes to mind anytime I think about Halloween 2. It's just classic. It's something that I saw years and years ago that has stuck with me. I think it's one of the more memorable kills in this film. While all of this is going on, while Michael is slowly killing the staff at this hospital, we have Dr. Loomis out trying to find Michael and figure out what is going on. I've mentioned that Sheriff Brackett's only in the film a little bit early on because early in the film, as the police start finding the bodies of the victims from the first film, and Sheriff Brackett realizes that his daughter was one of them, he blames Loomis for what's going on and takes off and basically just leaves his deputy in charge. And so now it's Dr. Loomis and this deputy that are trying to find Michael and figure out where he's at, where he's disappeared to, what's going on. Really, Loomis has forgotten all about Laurie at this point. But then we do get Dr. Loomis hears that Michael has broken into a school. He goes to this school as investigating. He finds clues there that links Michael to Samhain and to a cult, which Loomis is beginning to put together as this is why Michael seems to be so indestructible. Marion Chambers arrives, the nurse that was with Dr. Loomis in the first film, where Michael escaped. She arrives and she's got a U.S. Marshal, and they're supposed to be taking Dr. Loomis back. But she reveals to Dr. Loomis that Laurie is Michael's sister, and that she was adopted, I believe, is what it was, after parents died while Michael was in the hospital. And so, this being revealed to him, Dr. Loomis, realizes that Laurie is Michael's sister. He's killed his other sister, and now he's after Laurie. And so Dr. Loomis realizes they've got to get to the hospital, and so he forces the marshal to head towards the hospital. So these are the two things that are kind of playing out through the majority of this film. Michael at the hospital, killing off the entire staff, it seems like, and Dr. Loomis searching for Michael, it being revealed to him that Laurie is Michael's sister, and then him realizing that Michael is after Laurie, and that's where they have to get to. Again, I mean, that's a very brief summary, but again, I feel like we get some good kills. These kills maybe don't have. I don't want to say there's no suspense involved. That's what I was seeing that a lot of the critics thought is this movie just didn't have the suspense that the first film did, and no, it doesn't to the same level. It's not quite as suspenseful as the first film was. I will agree, but that doesn't mean there's no suspense whatsoever. There's still some good suspense to the film, uh, some good setup to some of the kills. It's not like it's just nothing. I mean, you get the security guard, as I mentioned, looking around for a while and getting a couple of jump scares before Michael actually steps up and kills him. I think we do get a little bit of build up to some of these kills, and so I don't think the film lacks the suspense. Does it have the same quality, same amount as the first film did? No, but it does still have some, and the kills are better. So where it maybe is a step down when it comes to the build up and the suspense, the kills themselves are actually better. So I enjoy this part of the film. Again, the runtime of, let me see exactly what that was again, a runtime of 92 minutes. Yeah, an hour and a half, basically. And again, I feel like, just like I feel like the first film goes very quickly and is very well paced, I feel the same way about this one. I don't feel like this movie drags either. I think it is also very well paced. And the score, once again, is very good. John Carpenter returning. We've got that Halloween theme. Once Michael and the Marshall and Marion Chambers arrive at the hospital, they get there just in time to save Laurie because Michael has finally found her. We've got a little bit of a cat and mouse going on in the hospital between Michael and Laurie, similar to what we had in the first film, where he's stalking her and trying to get to her in the house. Again, not quite as good as the first film, but it's not bad. That first film was just so classic and so amazing; it would be hard to recapture it, I think, 100%. But it's a good effort. I mean, it's a good attempt. It's not bad, not as suspenseful and great as the first, but still not bad at all, in my opinion. And then Dr. Loomis shoots Michael again. The U.S. Marshal goes to check to see if Michael's dead. He ends up getting killed by Michael, and then we get to the end of the film where Michael has chased Dr. Loomis and Laurie down, and now they're all in this room, and chaos is going on, and they finally Laurie manages to escape, and then Dr. Loomis, basically sacrificing himself, blows up the room, giving us the impression for a moment that both he and Michael have died. But then a few moments later, as Laurie's sitting in the hallway crying, we see Michael show up, and he's on fire, and he's barely getting down the hall, and then he does collapse over, and Laurie is taken away in an ambulance, and we get the assumption again that this time Michael didn't escape. This time he's dead. They go to show the scene where he's supposed to be. His body's there. It's burning. And we are under the impression that Michael Myers is dead and Laurie is being taken to another hospital. And that's Halloween 2. And I still find myself really enjoying this film. Like I said, I think we get the performances once again are great. Donald Pleasance is amazing as Dr. Loomis. Jamie Lee Curtis does a good job. She's not given as much to do in this film as she was the original, but she still does a good job in what she is given. Dick Warlock, I think, is fine as Michael. I did read that he tried to mimic some of the things that he saw Nick Castle do in the original. He tried to mimic those to keep things as close as possible. I think he does fine. He does well as Michael Myers, portraying the Shape. And then, the cast around them. I'm not talking like anybody's gonna, has given some kind of Oscar-worthy performance, but no one does a bad job. I don't feel like. Again, I think that the pacing of the film is very good. I like the score. I love the kills, and the suspense and the tension is there. Not at quite the same level, but it's still there. And so again, I think for this film, it's almost like you may lose, as I said before, you may lose some of that tension, some of that suspense, a little bit, but you get better kills and more gore. And so if that's your thing, then yeah, you're probably super pleased. I like that, so I'm fine with that. Would I have liked to have had the same feeling and the tension and the suspension and all this from the first film? Absolutely, because I think that first film was so amazing. It's such a classic. But I know it would have been hard to live up to. So I feel like this film is underrated. I hear a lot of people, and I think I've heard a few that are out there that like it, but it seems like most people are not as big a fan of this film as they are the original. And that doesn't really sound like what I wanted to say. Most people don't like this movie. Love the original, but aren't into this one. I love them both. I gave the original a 5 out of 5. For this one, on my rating of 1 to 5, I'm going to go with 4.5 because I think it's such a great sequel. I think it's so underrated. Again, I think there is some of the tension and suspense there, just not quite as well done as the first one, but it makes up for it with some better kills. Again, great performances. The character of Michael Myers is great. I love Dr. Loomis. I love Laurie. I like all of this. I think this is an amazing film, and I was tempted to almost give it a 5 as well, but I'm going to go 4.5 just because there is just a little bit missing is when it comes to that tension that first film had, and that first film was, perfect. So, but I think this one is a great follow up, a great sequel, and so yeah, Halloween 2, 4.5 out of 5 for me. I want to know what you think. So let me know. First of all, if you're not subscribed to the channel, please do so. Hit the like button on today's video, and then let me know what you think. Leave me some comments. Let me know what you think about Halloween 2. Are you a fan? You like this movie like I am? You realize it's not as good as the original, but still think it's very well done? Or do you not like this one? And, tell me why, because it's, at the end of the day, this is just my opinion. We all have them. Everybody's entitled to them. So tell me why you do or don't like this movie. I will be back in a few days. We're going to continue on with the franchise, and we're going to talk about Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, and some of the things that film has to say, and yeah, we'll get into all that. It'll be interesting to talk about Halloween 3. I have seen the movie before. I'm going to watch it again, possibly this evening. But yeah, we'll talk about that next. But like I said, thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Find me on social media. You can find me on Blue Sky, Instagram, just drew like X, TikTok, Letterboxd. Just about everything out there is Sean's Horror Corner. X and Letterboxd are just my horror corner. Sean's Horror Corner was too many characters, so I had to shrink it down or do something, and that's what I did. But yeah, follow me on social media. I do try to follow back as much as possible. And yeah, I'll see you in a few days, and we'll talk Halloween 3. Thank you so much. I'll see you soon.